This is episode 19 of the Bluegrass Blues podcast. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Amy. So, Jesse, a lot of us are feeling like we're riding a roller coaster without safety rails and seatbelts. But
Yeah.
Let's start with yesterday being Martin Luther King Day. There were a lot of activities in Louisville and in Lexington, and your brother was in town.
Well, yeah, my brother is a reporter for ESPN. He works for one of the branches of ESPN. And one of the stories he's working on is Vanderbilt University has this thing that they do every year with their college athletes where they take a bunch of them to different places to discuss civil rights. Like it's sort of like a civil rights tour. So they came to Louisville this weekend, and they went to the Muhammad Ali Museum, and then they went to the Roots Museum. This is something they do every year, and they like took a bus up from Nashville, and it's good that we're educating kids on what the history is of our past, given where we are these days. But it's encouraging that someone is thinking that yes, we have to keep teaching these things because we're in danger of losing all of these civil rights that we've gotten
And
over the
history
years.
tends to repeat itself if we don't understand.
Yeah, and the thing about history, I know how bad things are today, but things in the 60s and 50s and 40s were a lot worse for black people in the country in particular. Now it's bad for everybody. It's one of the things I find interesting about watching demonstrations against Trump is I see a lot of middle-aged white guys now yelling at ICE officers. And one thing that crosses my mind when that happens is, if I did the same thing, they would beat me up and carry me off. But it's that privilege that white males do have, but it's at least there's almost an uprising among that group, and that it just shows that I don't know if the fog is lifting or if the fever is breaking.
Well, I do think that a white woman being murdered in the
Yeah.
face, Renee Good
Shot in the
being
face.
shot in the face with her dog in the back of her car, I think that did a lot to wake up white people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it takes something like that. One of the things that we chant a lot is if anyone in our community isn't safe, no one is safe. So it's like we should not wait for someone who has blue eyes and white skin to be shot in the face by an ICE official. We should be out protesting this regime daily.
Well, yeah, I was at a protest, what was it, last week on the Belvedere, and that was one of the topics was the fact that the woman was shot in Minneapolis. And, it's one of the things that the speakers noted was that there were other people who were of color who were shot or killed, and no one knows who they are. But it takes just like if a white woman is shot by ICE, then that's when all the craziness, or not the craziness, but that's when all the resistance really amps up.
Yeah, I have noticed in the group that I volunteer with, which is called L Surge Louisville Showing Up for Racial Justice. It's a white group, and it's for white people to be trained to accompany our immigrant neighbors, black and brown neighbors, etc., who are being targeted by ICE. And the trainings are like sold out. I mean, sold out. It doesn't
It's
cost
standing
anything.
room.
Standing room, or where we have to shut them down and then keep scheduling new ones. So I'm excited about that. I mean, it's time for people to have. It's past time for people to have woken up.
Well, but what are people learning at these gatherings?
Well, we're learning a lot about how to show up and accompany our immigrant-led organizations, black, brown-led organizations. They tell us what they need, and then we show up. And a lot of us are in what's called a community defense network. We wear yellow baseball caps and orange vests, and we're out there looking for ICE. And then we're trained to stall ICE. We're trained to call a hotline about ICE. We're trained to look for a judicial warrant that is signed by a judge before allowing ICE to come into a facility or someone's home. So, it's really important for us to be showing up and be eyes and ears on the ground. I showed up at a place where they were providing maternal health care to young women who were pregnant, and they were leaving with diapers, and there were little kids in tow. And these are the least threatening people you will ever meet. And then I also went to another gathering of Haitians where there were a lot of kids, beautiful families who were showing up to commemorate their lives lost during the earthquake 15 years ago. And I'm out there on the street freezing, looking for ICE so that they can come in and feel safe and be in community. And it's just ridiculous what people are facing now. They're too afraid to go to work. They're too afraid to send their kids to school. They're too afraid to go shopping. And rightly so. Also, we're trained to go into neighborhoods where a lot of immigrants and Black and brown folks are living, and we have these cards that are bilingual, telling them what their rights are, and also giving the hotline number.
I guess the question is, you give people this information and they know what to do and who to contact, but if ICE does what it does, it doesn't care about anything, about the law. I always wonder, like, if ICE were to accost me, if I called the police here, would they do anything? That's an important question to look at, because I know that in other states, the police have been told that don't let ICE do this stuff in your town because that's your job.
Yeah,
and
but Greenberg sold us out in our town.
Yeah. So, but we'll get into that a little later. But it's just, there are concerns and there are dangers to having a group of armed vigilantes, which is what they are, running around.
Oh, they're good. They're the Gestapo. They're the SS. I also wanted to mention, unfortunately, on Martin Luther King Day yesterday, the KKK flyered a bunch of neighborhoods in the dead of night.
In Lexington?
In Lexington, ahead of the festivities, promoting white supremacy and KKK. And the good news is people were revulsed by this and picking up the flyers and throwing them away as trash and trying to keep them away from people with children and all the good things. So this is our country right now. White supremacists are highly emboldened. And again, when you see ICE, you see an ICE agent shooting a woman point blank in the face. And so far, there are no repercussions to this.
Right, yeah. And, we're supposed to, look at the shooter as someone who's, defending something. And the shooter wasn't defending anything.
But you do know that people that watch Fox News, they're really upset with Renee Good and the people like me that are showing up and trying to stall ICE from kidnapping our friends and families.
Renee Good is the woman who was shot. We haven't used her name yet, but yeah, that's true. The Fox News viewer is an idiot. I can't be delicate about that anymore. It's so easy to con them, and that's why Trump essentially is president, because what he's doing, or what he has been doing, is just regurgitating Fox News lines.
Well, and he's hired a bunch of news people.
Well, Fox News is his cabinet.
Exactly.
Hegspeth and what, the Bongino, is that, who's the FBI assistant director? I think it's Dan Bongino.
Okay.
But anyway, it's just a bunch of former Fox hosts.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the women in the cabinet look like the legs in Fox News. That if you watch Fox News enough, or you just watch it once, you'll notice that every woman has long legs.
And Pam Bondi
and blonde hair
and lots of plastic surgery, and there is a look. Kristi Noem's got it.
Right, and the press secretary has it, and anyone in the administration who's a woman has to have the Mar-a-Lago
Because
look.
it's 2025, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
still have to look like that.
Right. So yeah. Anyway, that's anyway. Have already. The Klan is out. That's not good. People are recognizing that that's bad. I think ICE's Klan. I think they're people who probably would have been in the Klan.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody who believes in protecting people would be in ICE. I think that they're incompetent people who
Are being paid
never
tens of
served in the
thousands of
military,
dollars.
didn't serve in as police. A lot of them, and they got like a $40,000 bonus for showing
I
up,
think it was 50.
and they're now going around terrorizing the
With
country
masks.
with masks. Yeah, why is a police agency running around in masks?
Right.
They should all be unmasked. They should all be tried when the air clears and when reality comes back, if ever. These are the people who you would see at the Nuremberg trials.
And these were the people that stormed the Capitol on January
Right,
6th.
yeah, they're traitors to begin with.
Right.
And so now the traitors,
They think they're patriots.
they're traitors. And the traitor in chief is the worst of them
Right.
all. And they follow him because they don't believe in the law. They just believe in having someone, a strong man in terms of running the country. And Trump isn't a strong man. He's just, anyway.
And he's so enabled.
Right.
But I also want to mention that today is Free America Day at 2 p.m. your local time. There are actions happening all over the country, and the Free America website talks about what we do today. We walk away from fascism. We walk towards a free America. We fight for a future that belongs to us all. Everybody in, nobody out. Welcome to the Free America Walkout. So at 2 o'clock, people are walking out of work, school, and commerce. We are withholding our labor, our participation, and our consent. And so take a look at that, although that will have happened when you hear the podcast. But take a look and see if you can find media about these walkout actions.
Right, because I've been looking at just the coverage that our local paper has been doing, and the coverage, of course, has been bad. Like I was discussing with you earlier this week, that after I went to the demonstration on the Belvedere, the coverage.
That's at the riverfront.
Yeah,
in Louisville.
the coverage wasn't anything. I think the day that happened, the story in the paper that led the website was the 10 best restaurants in Louisville.
Right.
So
Right.
the Courier Journal isn't going to cover
No.
anything. That's part of the current establishment. They don't want to offend anybody, but they don't want to stand up for democracy.
Right.
So why even?
And there are so many serious things happening. For example, we wanted to talk about the Obamacare insurance marketplace. Nationwide, the number of people buying health plans on Obamacare is down by about 833,000 compared with a year ago. So we're seeing fewer new enrollees. We're seeing more people dropping their coverage, more people choosing cheaper and less generous health insurance plans with higher deductibles. We are already one of the sickest states in this country, as everybody knows. And these rural hospitals are going to be closing. And now people can't afford health insurance. After we expanded the Affordable Care Act here in Kentucky, one of the few red states to do that.
Right.
It's galling.
Yeah, well,
But the 10 new restaurants, that's more important to talk about.
yeah, but in terms of the Affordable Care Act too, there's the fact that people are paying more for coverage is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable. But the other part of this is that the places that are the hardest hit are the rural areas
Right.
of the country. And rural Kentucky is really badly hit by this. The premiums are doubling in some cases or
Right.
tripling. People can't afford that. So the result is they either pay for a different kind of coverage that isn't as good as what they had before, or they just drop coverage altogether. And the fact that people in this state, and as we've noted many times, has a high degree of illness here. We say rural areas, but that's a place that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they realize that the reason they're paying more is because of who they voted for. It's their responsibility. But the other part of this, too, is that when you have fewer people taking advantage of the Affordable Care Act, somehow the prices of everything go up anyway. So,
Well, and when healthy people aren't in it to help sort of subsidize too.
right.
To your point, premiums are expected to increase this year from $888 last year to about $1,904 a month.
A month?
A month.
Yeah, a month, right. Yeah.
114% increase. That is a significant increase, Jesse. That's over $1,000 a month. That's over $12,000 a year, and we have some of the poorest families in the state.
Right, and you have to look at the median income in Kentucky as well, or the median household wealth, and that's like $73,000
For a family of
So
four.
you're talking essentially 1/7 or 1/5 to 1/7 of the cost is now going to healthcare, and people in that area can't afford it. It's like $73,000 is.
And we already lack affordable housing, and so people are house poor. So people are making a lot of really serious choices about how to feed their kids, how to get medicine in
Right.
general, transportation costs.
Right. Do you want food
shit
or do
show.
you want to be healthy?
Yeah.
It's like these are unimaginable choices, especially for poor areas. But, this is what's happening. It's happening in the cities as well, of course. But it's also happening in rural areas. In the cities, at least, you can get to a hospital at some point. There are lots of hospitals in Louisville. But if you're out in the rural area, you're going to have to drive an hour or more to the nearest hospital. And given the restrictions that are on medicine in general, for example, women's health, you have to go out of state to get women have to go out of state to get the proper health care. So this is something that we are expected. We expected it because
Yes.
that's what Republicans have been trying to kill since
Well,
Obamacare was introduced.
and the Democrats that, said, we're going to vote to end the shutdown now because we really believe that Republicans are going to join us and do the right thing.
No,
Of course
they were never going to do that. And all of us knew that to begin with. So we have to wonder, I guess this is a discussion for later, but why did the Democrats keep doing this? It's like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football. The Republicans are holding the football. The Democrats are running up to kick it, saying, okay, we're going to do good things for people, and then the Republicans pull the ball away from them.
Right.
And then the Democrats are laying there wondering, what happened?
Right.
Why did they do that? Aren't they decent people? And no, they're not decent people.
And we're going to address this in detail a little further. But speaking of the opposite of poor people, Musk did something very interesting this week. He gave Nate Morris, through his PAC, $10 million for his run for McConnell's open Senate seat. Nate Morris is a wealthy businessman. He was the chair of the board of Rubicon Tech. He's friends with Vance, Bannon, and Trump Jr. He's exactly the kind of person to fill McConnell's seat that really, really scares the shit out of me, honestly.
Yeah, well, as we've said, he's a millionaire. He got $10 million from Elon Musk, who I have to keep going back to this, but Elon Musk has a fortune of $780 billion.
World's richest
with
man.
A B, world's richest man by far. And he's giving Nate Morris, who's a rich person in himself,
Right.
and Nate
and
Morris
his self-funding
has spent more than $4 million
million.
on his own campaign. But Musk is giving him another $10 million because Morris is friends with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump Jr. and Steve Bannon. And Musk decides, okay, I'm going to give money to him. But I always have to look at this in terms of what does this mean to real people? And the fact that Musk, in his $780 billion fortune, is giving $10 million to Nate Morris, if you compared that to the median income, which we've referred to already, of $73,000 in Kentucky, that's the equivalent of a person with that income giving 93 cents. So if I could buy a politician for 93 cents, of course I'm going to do it. Musk has billions of dollars, and he's essentially paying just a minuscule amount of money. It's not even it doesn't even register in terms of his daily computations, because he can make $1 billion in a day if his stocks go up that much. But he's giving $10 million, and it's like nothing. It is literally nothing for him.
Yeah.
Go.
So Nate Morris, this wealthy businessman who's in Trump's inner circle, is not going to represent the average Kentuckian in any way and should not be voted for. But we live in a state where people are constantly voting for people that don't represent them. These elected officials get richer, and the rest of us get poorer, and they don't represent our interests. For example, Robert Stivers, who's our state Senate president, is completely against universal pre-K, which Governor Beshear is strongly pushing. And Jesse, you know a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, it's the early childhood education, which is really important. We need that in this state, which has like one of the lowest education rates in the country. And one of the things about this is I noticed that we talk about pre-K here. In San Francisco, which is where I was working for the past few years, the mayor there announced that they were going to give free and early child care to people who were making 150% of the median income in San Francisco. So that means that they are going to, anyone who's making $230,000 a year will get free child care in the city of San Francisco.
And that's a household.
That's a household income,
Okay.
Which is, you compare that to, so that's like 150% it's 150% above the median income. So you compare that to Kentucky. If you were giving 150% above the median income in Kentucky, that would be about $110,000. So the fact that the state Republican legislator, has decided that we're not going to educate our children, our youngest children, is another sign that Kentucky is going to continue to be in the back. It's going to be losing continually because you're raising a population of people who can't think, which is
Right.
what Republicans want.
Right, but when you think about it from an economic development standpoint, it's a terrible thing. Companies do not, and we've seen companies pull out, like Humana's pulled out, and UPS has pulled out to a certain extent. Companies do not want to come to a state where you can't educate your children. And now what we're finding in the Commonwealth's largest school district, which is Jefferson County Public Schools, that we've got this deficit of about $150 million, which is really disheartening. And in fact, I'm a member of a group called CLOUT, which means Citizens of Louisville Organized and United Together. And we did an action yesterday. We're doing an action till the end of the month because the superintendent is looking for ways to cut costs, and the proposal right now is to cut all mental health care, which is a really terrible idea, as we all know. And so we all basically called our school board member as well as the superintendent, pleading with them not to cut that. I think personally that central office still has bloat and that there are ways to cut costs in central office. And I have a friend, I just got to say this, Jesse, I have a friend who works in a special needs classroom in a high school. And they are so short-staffed and they are so underpaid. and the work conditions are really harsh, and they don't get listened to, and they don't get raises. And when they bring up anything, then someone from the school district comes and gives them a slide presentation of understanding their students better. They understand their students. But the point is that Kentucky, we do not educate our students well, and we don't put the resources into ensuring an educated, healthy populace.
Right, and the thing too is that what they're looking at, as you said, they're going to cut like more than $100 million from the budget. And I think the superintendent has already developed a plan that he's introduced. But the issue is that even with this cut, there's still $30 million in the red. So it's not something that's going to be solved anytime soon.
It's also not good because, you know, the Republican legislature would love to split up JCPS, right?
Yeah.
They say it's too big, and so anything that like this that happens, these systemic problems that we have, makes it even shakier.
Well, and they always say that JCPS is too big, but it has more students than other districts in the state. So that argument is illogical,
And it has more students of color than
right,
any
and
other.
but that's the reason. That's the reason that the Republican legislature
Let's
is
have
going
charter
after this.
schools, and let's have the state fund charter schools. So
Right. Yeah, the state shouldn't be funding private schools. Like, if you want to send your kid to private school, pay for it. And if you don't, send them to public school and make sure that we've made public schools better for everyone, because if you do that, then the state benefits overall. But people in the state don't look at things like in that way, and I don't understand why.
Also, it's the legislative session right now, so I would just encourage everybody, if you don't know what's going on, there's the Legislative Research Commission, LRC. You can go to their website. You can see the kind of bills that are being advanced. You can see what days people are coming in to advocate. Although you know that the state capitol is closed, a lot of the legislative sessions are being held privately without public input. So not a great situation right now. I also want to mention that I'm not happy with the Democrats either.
Why not?
Well, on January 7th, Governor Beshear had his State of Commonwealth address, and he mentioned, the word America about 30 times in the address, because as we all know, he's planning to run for president. And he, in his address, he cites Kentucky as an example of finding hope beyond the chaos. He said that Kentucky has found a way to work together and to find unity. But we all know that most Republicans did not show up for the speech, and Stivers himself said that Beshear's presidential chances were worse than a snowball's chance in hell. So you've got our governor basically painting this very rosy picture, and I will say I am grateful to have him as our governor. He saved lives, many lives during the pandemic. He shows up, he cares. I think he's a great governor, and I also think that he is not going to be funded we've talked about this well enough to be a real presidential candidate, a viable presidential candidate. And I also don't understand why, and let's talk about Attica Scott for a sec. So
because she had a piece
Scott,
that was worth reading.
Attica Scott is really worth, you can subscribe to her Substack. She is very thoughtful. Black woman, lives in the West End of Louisville, has been a state representative, has run, she primaried Morgan McGarvey for Congress. And she rightly says that the Democratic Party is still terrible for black women. They don't promote black women. They only promote establishment candidates, most of whom are white people. And when you think about, the fact that Beshear has already endorsed Craig Greenberg for the mayoral race so early, and Shamika Parrish-Wright, who's a Metro Council member and has been very active in civil rights work for her whole life here. She's primarying Craig Greenberg, and she hasn't been taken seriously by the Democrats. Of course, Morgan McGarvey, Attica Scott primaried him, and McGarvey was the establishment candidate. And meanwhile, Colonel Pam Stevenson, black woman, retired U.S. Air Force colonel, a state legislator, right now she's the minority floor leader. She's not raising money because the Democratic Party does not take these black women seriously.
And that's
And they're so qualified, Jesse.
right. But that's the problem with the Democratic Party, not only in Kentucky, but I think in general. Because if you look at what happened in New York, for example, like when Mondami won the mayoral race, he had the nomination. The establishment Democrats or the corporate Democrats did not endorse him.
No.
They didn't even endorse him.
And Cuomo is terrible. He's a terrible human being.
Yeah, he's a rapist.
But he was,
yeah,
exactly.
It's like he and Trump are rapists. But they decided that the corporate Democrats decided that, oh, okay, we're going to put in a guy who harasses women. We would rather have him than a person who actually is talking about making life affordable for the people of New York City. But we don't want that guy because he's brown. He's ethnic.
Well, and we saw this with Kamala too, with Kamala Harris. I mean, clearly more qualified to be the president of the United States over Donald Trump. And why did she lose?
But it's the difference between you could either have voted for a person who's a rapist and a con man who's been convicted of crimes,
white guy,
or you can vote for the black woman who's put rapists and con men and criminals in jail.
Right.
And the American people decided that we want the rapist and con man.
Right. And especially in Louisville and Jefferson County, I mean, these women that we're talking about, Shamika Parrish Wright, Colonel Pamela Stevenson, and Attica Scott, they are so close to what we need, what the constituents want and need for a better life for themselves, to break the cycles of poverty, to build wealth, to have education, etc. And none of them are taken seriously.
And I wonder how do you change that? That's the issue. There has to be some recognition that the way things are not acceptable anymore. We can't go for the quote unquote safe candidate because he's a white guy who has lots of money. We have to vote for people who actually are going to represent what the constituency is. Not doing that at all. But that's a problem with the Democrats, not only in Kentucky but nationally, because AIPAC still controls a lot of the Democratic Party. They're still donating to Democratic leaders. Well, for example, in San Francisco, because I'm going to keep referring back to San Francisco, the Democrat running for Nancy Pelosi's seat was in a debate with two other Democrats. And one of the questions was, is the situation in Gaza a genocide? Now, the two other Democratic candidates immediately said yes. They answered yes. But the person who is the front runner, who's going for Nancy Pelosi's seat and who's well known in San Francisco politics, didn't even answer the question. So, he knows where his money is coming from. He knows that if it comes between the issue of human rights or getting money, he's going to go for the money.
Yeah.
And that's typical of the Democratic Party throughout the country. So there is, we have to have a discussion at some point on not only we know the flaws of the Republican Party, but we have to explain why is the Democratic Party doing what it's doing, knowing what's going on and being aware of the situation that the people who support it are really going through difficult times, but they're not doing anything to address it. They're going for the
systemic problems.
They're going for the same corporate guys who are going to give us the same messages, who are going to, sort of give lip service to justice.
Well, it's all about the money and their cronyism. I gotta say, Jesse, when I went to the rally, the one a couple days before yours, about melting or crushing ice and all the things, the Democratic Socialists were there, and they basically organized the rally. We had about 1,000 people, a lot of speakers, and our Metro Council member, J.P. Linenger. He is a member of the Democratic Socialist Party, and he's making waves. And it shouldn't all be about these establishment candidates. And also Mamdani, I'm reading that he's doing amazing things in a very short period of time. And it's not about the money, and those of us who followed Bernie and AOC, I think something's catching on. Of course, it's very grassroots in a lot of places, but the fact that a Democratic Socialist won as mayor of New York, and you're seeing this in other major blue cities, I think we should be watching this.
You said we do have a Democratic Socialist in the
Our
Metro
Council guy, J.P.
But
Linenger.
we have to think, if this person was popular, would he be able to run for mayor, and what would his chances be? And given the current situation in Kentucky Democratic politics, he's not going to get the nomination, or whatever if he's going for higher office, they're going to find some rich white guy that they can that they feel comfortable with. And I think that's one of the problems. There's this over-reliance on comfort in democratic politics in this state, and there's not enough reliance on serving the people of the state.
Right.
So, maybe we should be advisors to the Democratic Party, but it's there's a lot of diversity here.
Well, and we haven't mentioned Charles Booker.
Yeah, Booker. But again, I think we discussed this in our last podcast.
Yeah.
But people just seem to be running for the wrong things. Like
Amy McGrath.
Yeah, Amy McGrath, as I said before, should be running for the House
Barr's
seat, Andy Barr's seat. That's open. Go for it. But she's running for governor, and she lost before.
No,
Sure.
the Senate seat.
Senate seat, right.
McConnell's open seat.
And Booker ran for Senate, but he should have challenged McGarvey, or he should have run for mayor, because he's got a following here. But instead, he's going for state office, and I'm totally cynical on this, but there's no way a black guy is going to win statewide office. And I would say that if David Cameron gets the nomination for the Republicans, he's not going to win.
But that might be a strategy. If Daniel Cameron becomes the Republican candidate, then Charles Booker might have a chance, because you have two black men running against each other.
I don't know. I think people won't vote.
Yeah.
I think people in the state would just say, no, we're not going to accept this. But that's never going to happen. Two black men or two black anyones are never going to have both nominations, major nominations in this state, for the Republicans and the Democrats to run against each other.
So on the one hand, we're condemning the white, rich establishment, Jesse, and we're promoting voices like Atticus Scott and Shamika Parrish Wright and Colonel Pamela Stevenson, and then on the other, we're cynical that or Charles Booker, we're cynical that any of them can win.
Statewide office.
Okay.
Statewide office, definitely. Local office, I think, is winnable.
Although the white establishment Democrats are not supporting them in any way.
Right. So this is the question: where does the support come from? And I don't have an answer to that. That's just.
And it's all about the money now, unfortunately.
Right.
So speaking of money, we have this very large bourbon industry, and as we know, Beam stopped production in one of their facilities for the entire year of 2026, and I read that last year in one quarter, U.S. spirit exports were down 9%, reflecting a loss of $57.4 million for U.S. distillers. And this was on the heels of record-breaking sales and exports in 2024, which saw more than $2.4 billion exported abroad from 43 states. If you read about these losses and you try to get it from local news, the tariff situation is buried. Buried, as if it has no, or Trump's vast disapproval in other countries where people are now boycotting American products like our bourbon.
Well, let's talk about the tariffs for one, because that is even McConnell and Rand Paul realized that tariffs were bad for Kentucky, and they did express their voice against Trump's tariffs. And the thing about tariffs is, particularly since we went out of our way to insult Canada, is that that's like the major importer of American bourbon. And so the, we discussed this. They give us these reasons. The establishment line is that, oh, sales are down and we're going to repurpose our brand or whatever. But as you said, during the pandemic, bourbon sales were at record levels, and all of a sudden, there we have too much bourbon, and we have to stop producing, and they're trying to con us into believing that the reason is because, not because of tariffs, but because more people are using cannabis, or people have decided to be healthier and they're not going to drink as much. But that's not the case. I've been criticizing the Courier Journal constantly, but I read the story where they were talking about the tariffs and why Jim Beam was shutting down its production, and
it's cyclical, and
yeah,
you know.
There's no that. If they read their own story, they would see that this doesn't make any sense, and that the reason the reason that this is happening is because of Trump's tariffs.
Right.
And Rand Paul knew it. Mitch McConnell knows it. Who's the Comer?
Massey.
And Massey.
And Comer.
Both know it.
Right.
And
and Comer's making a play, certainly politically.
Okay. Yeah,
he knows that hemp farmers and business people are just being crushed, and he wants to delay the legislation that's going to basically make growing hemp even harder.
Right.
And I want to just say that 17,000 Kentuckians have been approved for by licensed practitioners for selling medical cannabis, right? And the first dispensary that opened, they closed because they ran out of product.
Right.
So you're talking about something that the consumer wants and needs. We're so sick, and yet we cannot make this available.
We should also point out that the production of marijuana or hemp is one of the major crops in Kentucky.
As it should be.
Yeah.
We're perfect for it.
But you look around the country and you go to other states, other cities, and there are dispensaries
everywhere,
all over. It's not a medical dispensary. It's just like anyone can walk in anytime, get whatever you want, walk out. And
it's not driving up crime.
Right.
At all.
Well, crime is down.
It's down.
Crime is down. And so
hang out with someone who's smoked a little weed.
Right. They're not in any mood to do anything bad.
Okay.
But, crime is down. These facilities are all over the country, Denver. And I was in New York, and if you walk down the streets of Manhattan, there's a dispensary on every other block. I was in San Francisco. You walk down the streets of San Francisco, there's a dispensary on every other block. There is a cannabis shop in Louisville, but they sell hemp-based products. But there's still a buzz with whatever you get there. But the fact that this is the major crop in the state, and we're not exploiting it, we're not distributing it around the country because we have these legalities that we're dealing with, while the rest of the country is way ahead of us. Plus the fact that, as I said, this is the major crop in the state right now, and there are farmers that are relying on this crop, and we're about to lose it because
not only us. I mean, so this provision in the federal spending bill, the bad, horrible, not beautiful bill.
The bullshit bill.
So it bans the sale of hemp-derived products with more than 0.4 milligrams of THC per container. So this advocacy group, U.S. Hemp Roundtable, estimates that restrictions that stringent would affect 95% of hemp extract products that are currently on the market. And currently this ban is supposed to go into effect in November. It's so dumb.
But there's nothing we can do because this is a federal issue now.
Well, even Comer, who's been Kentucky's agriculture commissioner, wants to push this down a couple years, and Mitch was supportive of this too, and then he caved, and I think it was Rand Paul that's really stepped up for the farmers.
Well,
We're so dumb here.
yeah, but again, this goes back to other issues we were discussing, like education. Like, if you were educated, you would know that this is the logical conclusion. But
Well, and it also goes back to people are not watching the money. We're not watching where the money goes and who's powerful. Churchill Downs and the horse racing industry, they've prevented us from having other gambling venues outside of them. The bourbon industry does not want hemp production and for people to access medical marijuana or recreational marijuana. Follow the money.
yeah,
And it's hurting all of us.
right. And things aren't going to get any better
No.
until they, people decide to. Well, what's the answer? And my answer is always get rid of the Republican Party, but
I just
that's
think
not
there's a
going to
lot of
happen.
harm that's going to be happening, and people are really going to suffer before we turn the tide on this. I
yeah.
hate to say that. Of course, the midterm elections are so critical, and we've got to have them. I did read, though, that a lot of Republicans aren't being challenged across the state for the midterms, which is really sad. Another thing I wanted to mention,
Well,
Jesse.
before you
go ahead.
get
Yeah.
to that point, I think it's interesting that Republicans aren't facing challenges because there are Republicans in this state who have pissed off Trump and they're not getting the challenge in their primaries, which tells me that the fever might be breaking, that Republicans are realizing that they don't have to bow to Trump for everything because they know that in the next election cycle, they're in trouble. It's obvious that people are pissed off. You look at the demonstrations against ICE. You look at the fact that healthcare is going up. You look at the fact that major production of a Kentucky commodity, bourbon, is being slashed.
Well, and Stivers did not take
Oh, right.
the White House's advice to gerrymander out the only Democratic congressional district in Kentucky.
Right.
And I think they're hedging their bets right now as to what's going on with Trump and whether they should be allied with him.
Yeah, but they want to have
They wanna have it both
documented.
ways.
Yeah, it's like their alibi. They want it documented that they're not. They can go in and they say we're not beholden to, the federal government. We're beholden to the people of Kentucky. I can make this speech. I used to write speeches for Republicans. So
If you were beholden to the people of Kentucky, you'd be making health care more accessible, not
Right,
less.
yeah.
You'd be educating the children,
Yeah.
right? You'd have affordable housing.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, well, and we might as well go into the other thing that's still around is disaster relief.
Right.
We were looking at some statistics, and it looks like from 2010 to 2025, there were 10 counties nationwide that made the most declarations of disaster. 9 of those counties are in Kentucky.
Yep.
And they're in eastern Kentucky, and they were hit by floods. They're hit by all kinds of bad things. Again, I'm going to say the people in eastern Kentucky overwhelmingly voted for Trump, and then he ended FEMA. He essentially ended FEMA's functionality in this state. So there are,
But the state is now going to have a state resiliency office. I don't know how it's going to be funded to lead disaster preparedness and resilient efforts across the state. Where's the money going to come from?
I don't even know what resiliency means. What did they mean by that? It's like, we're going to, this is my favorite part, we're going to establish a blue ribbon commission to
Right.
study this problem that
Right.
everyone knows the answer to already. But we're going to do this commission because it'll delay any action at all. And then we can say that we actually studied it, because this is about having something to say in the campaign. Like, they can say, we established this committee to do whatever, and we're looking at it, and just give us time and we'll get it done.
And by the way, these disasters cost billions of dollars to Kentucky. And, we keep telling you this is a very poor state. So where's the money coming from? It's certainly not going to be coming from the federal government that Kentuckians are voting for.
Well, Elon Musk has $780 billion. He could just pay for it when he's not buying politicians, but that's not in his interest.
No. So, Jesse, we wanted to segue a little bit. We have a disturbing article about a Kentucky probation officer that was routinely sexually harassing his female charges, and he did not get fired. He did not get fined. He volunteered to resign from his job. And apparently this is systemic. This is institutionalized, this sexual harassment in these offices. We have a new female head of the Kentucky probation officer in the state corrections department, and she follows her predecessor, who was corrupt and disgusting.
Well, he was ousted because he had a similar situation where one of his employees was sexually harassing the people that he was supposed to be overseeing. And again, it was known they didn't do anything. He didn't respond fast enough. And when they made the issue, I think he just sort of wrote it off.
Yeah.
So,
I just thought it would end.
Yeah, right. So he's out.
Thanks a lot.
But with this latest one, it's the same thing. It's the same situation. There's no charges against this guy, but he's gotten away with harassing. Not harassing. He's asking for sex from these women who have no choice because
they get thrown back in jail. He has power over them.
Yeah, he'll just make a call and say, "Oh, this person's out of line."
And he says, "I know where you live." And,
right. And with a little LOL at the end.
Yeah, LOL. It's disgusting.
Right. This is it's more corruption in.
And you know what, women. We should be listening to this and taking this very seriously. Remember how we talked about, we know what we saw. We saw Renee Good get shot in the face by this guy. We know what we're seeing, what's happening to women. And Attica Scott talks about this, and I've listened to this on other Substacks. If you don't think they're coming after white women, then you are deluded. They are coming after white women.
Well,
Wake up.
That's been the case because the whole abortion issue. The effect has been on white women. Black women weren't able to get abortions as freely as white women were. They could.
Well, and for religious reasons
right.
too. A lot of black women are not as likely as white women to have abortions. So, but reproductive health care is going into the shitter.
Right.
We talked about education, Jesse. What about these bomb threats?
Yeah, that was part of a nationwide thing where I think
last Monday.
Yeah, there was U of L, our local school just 6 blocks from me, also got a bomb threat at its library, and I don't know if anyone's been arrested, but the fact that someone just feels like, oh, I'm going to call in a bomb threat, or I'm going to say there's a bomb planted at a school, and disrupting schools all over the country.
Right, Murray State University.
I don't know. Is it a joke, or is this person just...
People are emboldened, Jesse. Yeah. There are no consequences to these actions.
Right.
I mean, when you can riot and attack the U.S. Capitol and be pardoned, it's a free-for-all. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I just read that gun legislation, the gun regulations, they're going to, take away gun regulations, so we don't have as many of those.
Oh, more guns for more people?
Yeah.
Well, it makes it easier when...
the gun lobby is really happy. I mean, again, follow the money, Jess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who are they donating to? And the gun lobby donates to Republicans mostly.
Right.
But there's just that idea of calling in bomb threats. That whoever did that is a psychopath. There's no other way of getting around it. But this is again
where we are.
This is where we are in 2026. can't believe it's 2026.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So we did want to end on a positive note, and we want to talk about university sports.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to say, my parents are IU Bloomington alums. Mom, rest in peace. And last night's football game for the championship, for the college football championship against Miami, that was one of the most exciting games I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I think Mendoza is unbelievable. When he charged and got that touchdown late in the game, the quarterback on the 4th down, I was just dying.
Yeah.
And they were 16-0, and apparently a team hasn't gone 16-0 since Yale did in the late 1800s. And you're talking about the most losing college football franchise in the country.
You have to wonder, how did he turn that around so fast? Because it was I was watching Indiana games throughout the year just to look at them, because I was hearing, oh, Indiana's got a really great team, and they were blowing out people right and left. And I did think they were going to blow out Miami because U of L beat Miami this year. So just another thing to regret in terms of college sports this year. So Miami was in it till the very end. It was not one of these games where it was a blowout. And that last play where the Indiana defensive back intercepted the ball, that closed it out.
Oh my God!
But that was so
amazing.
close. That was like inches from being a touchdown for Miami. So yes, it was a great game, and it just it reflects the importance of college sports to various universities, because what was it, 2 years ago, Indiana sucked. It literally sucked. No, literally is the wrong word. Anyway, it was no good. And I think they won maybe 3 games 2 years ago. And now they go undefeated.
And Fernando is the Heisman winning starting quarterback. And his brother, Alberto, was the backup quarterback. By the way, he just entered the transfer portal this month. And I don't blame him.
His brother?
Yeah, his brother. So that he can be a starting quarterback somewhere else.
Does U of L need a quarterback?
I don't know. Let's watch.
Yeah, well,
his name's Alberto.
Yeah, so that was a good sports story.
And their family is beautiful, and their mom has MS.
Yeah, she was in a wheelchair.
She uses a wheelchair. The younger brother. I loved that the cameras were cutting to the family. It was so beautiful.
All right. Since I'm going to divert to another sport, and the U of L women's basketball team, still great. They had 2 great games this week. They beat Notre Dame. And which was a big deal. And what was it, a couple of days ago, they beat NC State, and that went into overtime.
What are we ranked now, Jesse?
I think we're ranked number 8. Wow. So we're definitely, if you were to form the college basketball tournament now, Louisville would be a 2 seed. Because, the first 4 are the 1 seeds, the next 4 are the 2 seeds. So Louisville's in really good shape.
May I go to another game with you?
Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Yes.
I'll let you know when.
Thank you.
We're available.
You have the best seats.
But since we're talking about college sports, there's a lot of money involved there. And I was watching a video where they were talking about how much different schools pay for college sports. And the University of Kentucky, their sports program cost $910 million a year, which is a huge amount of money. While Louisville, its cost of college sports is like $645 million a year. And Louisville is like the 37th most expensive. And while Kentucky's like number 15 in terms of the schools that pay the most for sports. And of course, the school that pays the most is in Texas. So that's just to be expected.
I will say there's still a disparity. I mean, we have these great women's teams, and their coach the women coaches, the women's sports coaches do not get paid anywhere close to what the male coaches do.
Yeah, this is true. But Jeff Walls, who's the coach for Louisville, gets $1 million a year. Which
Yeah,
is,
but if you look
if he were the men's basketball coach, that would probably triple or quadruple.
Yeah,
So,
easily.
yeah, but anyway, it's
But yeah, the women rock. Come on out and see them. They're so good and they're so fun.
right. So
And Jesse has the best seats.
right,
really
and
fun.
they're at season tickets. So
Yes.
I'm
Way to support our. What are they called? Lady.
the Cardinals. No, they're just the Cardinals.
Cardinals,
Yeah,
thank you.
back in the old days,
Thank you.
would always refer to the women's team as the Lady
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
But no, these are the Cardinals,
I love
Louisville
that.
Cardinals. So
Thank you.
that use of lady or the gender identifier in women's sports is disappearing.
Good.
Or pretty much
As it should.
disappeared. I can't think of any team that goes by Lady whatever anymore. Anyway, so there's still some season left. I'm really hoping that they make it into the Final Four because that's in Phoenix, and I can go to Phoenix and go to the Final Four.
And your uncle lives there.
Yep, that's
aunt.
yeah. So free boarding.
Yes,
So
yes,
it's
yes.
Let's go Cards.
I
Anything
think that
else?
about does it, Jesse.
Okay. Well, we have had a good discussion. We will. We have links to the various things we talked about, so we'll include that on the website, and we will be back in a couple of weeks.
And again, I know I'm a broken record, but there is something that you can do to fight the tyranny that we are seeing in this nation. There is something you can do, and if you need some ideas, DM me on our website, the bluegrassbluespodcast.com, and I'll help you. I am here for you. I am here to serve.
Yeah, and
Act up.
Yes,
Let's
take
make some
advantage of
good
what
trouble.
we got. Yes, let's make all kinds of good trouble, and we will see you next time. So until then,
Stay warm.
bye. Our closing music is by John Chamberlain.